a major crackdown on the Khalistani extremism, India's National Investigation Agency has now decided to confiscate the properties of at least 19 Khalistani terrorists. This as action will be taken against these terrorists under Section 33, subsection 5 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. According to reports, the Central Investigating Agency has prepared a list of Khalistani terrorists who are hiding in foreign nations. These include terrorists from the UK, US, Canada, UAE and Pakistan, among others. The following development comes after the NIA confiscated the properties of the Sikhs of Justice spokesperson Gurpatwant Singh in Chandigarh yesterday. With the India-Canada diplomatic ties worsening by the day, prospective students as well as those Indians who are already in Canada to pursue education are bearing the brunt. The parents of Indian students are worried that the standoff can impact their children in Canada and expose them to security risk. They are concerned that their children may experience discrimination or bias based on their nationality. Meanwhile, India has issued travel warnings, stopped visa issuance to Canadians and downsized Canada's diplomatic presence in India. Amid an ongoing diplomatic standoff with Canada, the Canadian Defence Minister has called the relationship with India important. Minister Bill Blair has said that Canada will continue to pursue its Indo-Pacific strategy. The strategy commits $492 million over 5 years towards military priorities. However, the minister has said that if the allegations are proven true, then Canada will raise significant concerns. The Speaker of Canada's House of Commons has apologized for praising a Second World War veteran who fought for the Nazis. 2 days earlier, Speaker Anthony Rota had recognized a 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka as a Ukrainian hero before the Canadian Parliament. Hunka served as the Second World War as a member of the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS. He was honored by the Canadian lawmakers in front of the visiting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. In a statement issued later, Rota took responsibility for his comments. He also conveyed his deepest apologies to the Jewish community. At least one woman has been injured and heavy infrastructure losses incurred in Russia's overnight missile and drone attack on the port of Odessa in southern Ukraine. Ukrainian lawmakers said the overnight attack resulted in the damage of the port infrastructure, a grain silo and an empty building that used to be a hotel. Visuals showed Ukraine's emergency service trying to extinguish fire at the hotel building. Ukraine's Air Force said that its air defense systems destroyed at least 19 Iranian-made Shahid drones, nearly 11 cruise missiles and at least 2 hypersonic missiles that Russia launched on Ukraine overnight. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that the US has agreed to jointly produce weapons with the country. President Zelensky has called the decision an absolute fantasy until recently. He added that the pact includes air defense systems that help Kyiv mitigate Russia's air attacks. The announcement came at the heels of President Zelensky wrapping up his visit to the US. The Ukrainian leader also added that the agreement will create jobs and an industrial base in Ukraine. The war-torn country's economy has been battered ever since the Russian invasion. China is exploring new avenues to bypass restrictions on the lithography machines which are used in the production of microchips. Researchers are laying the foundation of the future of semiconductor fabrication using particle accelerators to create a novel laser source. The particle accelerator will transform into a high-quality light source for an on-site chip manufacturing and scientific inquiry. The innovation will help China propel into a leadership role in the industrial production, and experts predict this unprecedented technology can overstep US sanctions, making China a new leader in the semiconductor chip industry. The Nepalese Prime Minister is currently on an 8-day-long visit to China. Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal Prachanda held a bilateral meeting with the Chinese Premier Li Qiang and signed key agreements. The leaders discussed advancing their ties and cooperation. The Nepalese Prime Minister also said that Zhao Liji is the chairman of the Standing Committee of China's National People's Congress. Prime Minister Prachanda was also accorded a ceremonial guard of honor. This is his maiden visit to China as Prime Minister. South Korea's Foreign Minister Park Jin met with delegates of Beijing, Tokyo and Seoul for a trilateral meeting. South Korea's Deputy Foreign Minister, Japan's Senior Deputy Foreign Minister and China's Assistant Foreign Minister met with Jin in Seoul. Three deputy ministers will also hold talks on Tuesday to discuss the staging of a trilateral summit. President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will put its soldiers out of Niger. This as the tensions remain high following a coup that broke out in July in the West African country. The leader has been dealing with a huge blow to French influence and counter-insurgency operations in Niger. He confirmed that 1,500 troops will withdraw by the end of the year. President Macron has added that France refuses to be held hostage by such moves. France's exit comes after weeks of pressures from the junta and the popular demonstrations. However, it has worsened Western concerns over Russia's expanding influence in Africa. Serbia's president has condemned the killing of a police officer in Kosovo. This comes after the standoff between the gunmen and Kosovo authorities at a monastery ended on Sunday night. One officer and 3 of the armed attackers died in the shootouts. The president said the killing cannot be justified, but added that the clash was a result of brutal pressure on Kosovo Serbs by the government. Meanwhile, Kosovo's Prime Minister has joined hundreds of people for a vigil for the police officer who was killed in the shooting. Kosovo's Prime Minister also blamed Serbia for supporting the attack. The U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has met with the Djibouti's President Ismail Omar at the meeting. Austin reinforced cooperation between the two nations. He also discussed efforts to enhance military cooperation and increase regional stability. The meeting comes as a part of Austin's tour to Africa, which includes stops in Djibouti, Kenya and Angola. Moreover, the Defense Secretary will pay a visit to the U.S. military personnel stationed in Djibouti and in Kenya. As per the Pentagon, Austin will reiterate the department's appreciation and gratitude for their service to promoting peace and security in the region. A NASA space capsule carrying the largest soil sample from an asteroid streaked through the Earth's atmosphere on Sunday. The capsule parachuted into the Utah Desert, delivering celestial specimens to scientists. NASA has called the first ever asteroid sample return an incredible one. This is the third asteroid sample and by far the biggest ever that has returned to the Earth for analysis. It followed 2 similar missions by Japan's space agency, which were carried out in 2010 and 2020.
Wonderful to see that. Always autonomous on board that SRC. And once again, just setting the context for this, when we first hit the top of the atmosphere, we were at
Hundreds of migrants were forced to take shelter in flimsy tents near a bus terminal in Mexico City. This as they could not afford a journey to their final destination at the U.S. Masses of people have been rushing to the borders in the recent weeks. The number of migrants that cross over illegally has risen after a dip earlier this year. The situation has been tense. The Mexican president has said and asked for a bilateral meeting with the U.S. President Joe Biden. President Obrador hopes to discuss the migration crisis which has overwhelmed Mexico. Storm Ophelia has wreaked havoc across several states in the U.S. and brought more rain and winds while moving across the nation's Atlantic coast. Now downgraded to a post-tropical storm, Ophelia threatened parts of the northeastern U.S. with coastal flooding and gusty winds. Ophelia made a landfall near the Emerald Island, North Carolina, on Saturday. The center had earlier warned that the swells created by the storm would affect the East Coast throughout the weekend. In India, two floods brought by torrential rains left a scene of destruction in the Indian city of Nagpur on Sunday as roads turned into rivers. Heavy rainfall forced residents living in low-lying areas to evacuate. Residents in these areas of the city that saw cars damaged and household items ruined by floodwaters. Maharashtra's Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis visited the worst affected areas and said the situation remained critical. He estimated a loss to around 10,000 houses and assured necessary financial assistance. Disaster relief work is underway in New Zealand's Queenstown after heavy rain hammered the tourist town. The heavy downpour compelled the local authorities to declare a state of emergency until Saturday. More than 100 people were evacuated due to the flood scares across the town. Many roads in the town were blocked due to the landslides, while some schools were also ordered to remain shut until further notice. Tourist facilities on mountains were also damaged by the heavy rain, and cable cars at some attractions were also forced to suspend operations. Chile has raised the alert level for the Villa Rica volcano from yellow to amber after an increase in activity. The amber alert remains there is a greater probability of an eruption in the coming weeks. Villa Rica, which is one of South America's most active volcanoes, has erupted in 2015. The sudden eruption sparked a mass evacuation. However, no injuries were reported. The glacier-clad volcano is surrounded by a population of at least 28,000 people that inhabit the area within 15 kilometers of the peak. Visitors of a Canadian amusement park got stuck upside down on a ride for nearly 30 minutes. This after the massive ride malfunctioned while being fully loaded with people. Maintenance staff brought the ride down to safety after the incident occurred. While people were heard screaming for help, no major injuries have been recorded. Two people reported to have lost sensation in their legs and severe chest pain post the ride scare. As per authorities, the ride will remain closed until the investigation into what went wrong is found out. Slums in Brazil's Rio have had to search for ways to cool off from the heat wave that has hit Brazil as the temperatures rose to 38 degrees Celsius. Residents gathered in a swimming pool for some relief. As per residents, the extreme weather is a result of lack of climate monitoring in cramped dwellings. The Met Department has issued a red alert in different regions of Brazil, including Rio. Experts have also warned against the danger of rising temperatures. The mercury this week hit at least 5 degrees above the normal temperature. Gold edged low after eking out a narrow gain last week as investors assess the U.S. Federal Reserve officials' decision to flag further interest rate hikes ahead of the consumer inflation print later this week. Higher interest rates discourage purchases of non-interest paying bullion, which is priced in dollars. Indian shares on Monday hit a more than 2-week low as information technology stocks continued to fall. Both the Sensex and Nifty ended last week in their lowest in months as the Fed's hawkish stance indicated interest rates will remain higher for longer. Indian stocks managed to recover some of their losses during the midday, but surging crude oil prices have also brought inflation worries to investors in the world's third largest importer.